Ah,
See, there's no time like the present, and the time is now for a live edition of the In-Ring Wrestling Podcast. Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Kelly, and our host, of course, is Casey Thompson. He is off to my screen right, and Casey made a career of himself by sacrificing his body in an effort to get others over. Now, that's a selfless endeavor, Casey.
it's an endeavor.
And one of the things, and so we've been talking a lot about, your experiences, and at the time you were bouncing back and forth doing enhancement work for both WWF and a lot for WCW as well. It was a full-time career mixed in with independent shows, various times here and there, weekends, et cetera, et cetera. And I saw a clip last night that made me think of this week's topic. And it was probably from 1991, and it was in the WWF, and Dusty Rhodes gave Ted DiBiase the bionic elbow to the top of the head, and Ted took a flat back bump and rolled out to the floor. The ring did not move up at all.
Wow.
And it looked like, and it wasn't like some weird one-off show. It looked like television. It looked like Saturday night's main event. It looked like, their usual ring that they had set up. And so how stiff are these rings? And isn't it supposed to be, listen, when I was a kid and everybody said, oh, wrestling's fake, and they're on trampolines. It's not a trampoline, is it?
I really wish it was a trampoline. I'll probably feel a lot better today, going 30 years later. I will say this. I've heard people say that WWF ring was so much harder than WCW's, but I don't get it. I don't understand. I was in both of them at both times. And okay, first you got to break it down. WCW was an 18 by 18 foot ring, and it had steel cables in the ropes. WWF at the time, WWE, the same ring. It was a 20 by 20, and they used actual real rope for their ropes. Now, the difference is WCW was a wooden ring. They used Douglas fir wood, very hard wood, so it didn't give. And you can listen, and WWF used a steel ring back when in 91, as you were talking about, they had their flooring was plywood that was fiberglass for it wouldn't break all the time. So steel is going to give more than wood. Now,
Really?
I was in both. Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm not a scientist. I'm not a scientist, but steel is harder than wood, is it not?
I mean, not solid steel. That's solid steel.
Oh, I see.
This is solid wood, and it's steel casing, aluminum steel casings that it bends. It is 20 foot long, so that steel, when someone hits it, is going to bend. It's going to give a little. Now, there's been discussion if they had a spring in the middle of it. I'm not sure if they did. I know at some point they did, then they took it away at some point. But I will tell you this. You can listen if you put the soundtracks of someone taking a bump next to a WCW ring and a WWF ring. You can hear the difference. You can tell one is steel and one is wood. And I always preferred the WCW ring more. Even though I thought it hurt so much more to take a bump in.
Wow.
I've taken power bombs by Sid in both of them. Granted, they both hurt, but WCW, when you take that big power bomb and they come down with you, it actually felt like your ass was just going to explode.
Oh.
Like your guts was just going to come out. WWF, it was rough, taking a big power bomb like that. But remember when I talked about 1991, when I went up and rode with a couple of buddies of mine, and we did TV Biloxi and Pensacola and Biloxi, and they're looking for someone to do Legion of Doom's finish. Tony Gurria was, and I said, yeah, I can do it, no problem. That was 1991. I took that bump, the Doomsday device, And I tell you, it was actually one of the lightest bumps I've ever taken. I don't know why.
That now, and you over rotated on purpose. You didn't take the face bump, right? You didn't get the flat back house show variety. You got the wham, and you spun
I did
off
one,
but kept going.
2, and 3 on my belly
Oh,
and a face bump. And I didn't feel a thing,
jeez.
which, yeah, it was bizarre. It was, I don't understand it. I don't get it. Now, I've used both wooden rings and steel rings. I prefer a wooden ring. I like the sound of it. When you hit it, that noise it makes, it
Mm-hmm.
just, to me, it sounds more devastating than, you know, look at an old High Spots ring. You remember that when they first started selling those and you run on it, you would stop running and the platform was still, the floor was still doing do 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 do.
Yes.
you know,
Well,
that's just
they've
good.
had, and again, there's a lot of science and a lot of technology to wrestling rings, which
Right.
I think a lot of fans, and me included, I don't know all there is to know about a wrestling ring. I know how it's assembled, and I know that when it's assembled right, the poles are straight, the
Mm-hmm.
ropes are tight, and the center of the ring has some give.
Right.
And if it's not put together properly, because you could take the same ring, set it up, it's set up fine. Set it up the next day, think you do the exact same thing, and for whatever reason, it's a little bit off, and a pole's a little bit crooked, and it's a little stiffer, or whatever.
Yeah, and it's all about getting it squared when you start off with, And I will say, we do have a special guest next week. I did talk to him today. We were talking for a little bit, and I told him about today's subject that we are talking about. And he actually made wrestling rings. So he has a lot of knowledge into. So
Okay,
I was
good.
like, okay, let me ask you a little question. So I was talking to him. So maybe next week, if we want to just veer backwards and say ask his opinion on what he thinks, and he might be able to go into a little in depth on how they're built and different things like that. It might be, something that our in ring wrestling podcast does that a lot of other podcasts don't, is we like to tell the people the stuff that they don't know about. They always wanted to know, but they're not too sure.
Yeah.
So if we can
Well,
get
a
a
lot.
little behind the scenes info on how the ring is constructed, might be kind of interesting to some of our viewers out there.
Sure. And we'll, of course, let you know later on this week who our special guest is going to be. Somebody very knowledgeable and very well known within the wrestling industry. And we'll have a lot of ground to cover. That's for sure. Absolutely. The name Goldberg will be spoken of quite a bit during the interview next week. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
excited about all of that.
Probably a little Diamond Dallas Page, maybe.
Yeah. I made
Yeah.
it have to get into some Pez Watley with him.
Ooh, I
See,
love some Pistol Pez.
I know.
You remember him back
Okay.
in Florida?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, that was some good stuff, wasn't it?
Well, okay, so when he was when did he come in like around 81, 82?
I thought it was more like 84, but I could be
Well,
a little off.
but I know 84 was when he was there and was kind of figured in. And
Yeah, he had the Southern
81,
title.
right, 81 I kind of remember, and I'm not sure if it was just a here and there kind of thing, if he was down in Florida on vacation and showed up in Tampa and got, a TV book. He just
Right,
booked guys over. He wasn't a star then. But
right.
there's so much ground that we can cover. So we'll talk about it on social media all this upcoming week. We'll let you know. We'll get your questions ready. We're taking questions in our chat. My man Matthew's asking me about Mariah May and him and trying to book some fantasy angle. I'm not interested in that. What I am interested in is finding out. Okay, so Casey, the premise of this is which ring is stiffer,
Well,
and maybe is it WWF or is it WCW? Could the size of the ring have anything to do with it? Is a because WCW rings were 18 by 18, WWF's 20 by 20.
Right.
Is there a difference? Which did you prefer to work in outside of whether or not it was a good or a bad bump? Did you like the 18 or did you like the 20?
My conditioning wise, it didn't make a difference to me at the time. Um, I was trained in a 16 by 16. So when I did the first TV at WCW, we got an extra 2 foot.
Yep.
And then the first time I did, TV with WWF or WWE now, it had another 2 foot on it. So um, I preferred the 18 by 18. When I ran my promotion, I used an 18 by 18 ring. And I think with smaller buildings, it didn't look small like a 16 by 16 would, like too small.
Right.
I think AEW in Australia had to use a 16 by 16 ring because their ring didn't make it or something like that when they're through
I
shipping
think
or
they just
customs. So
rented. I think they just rented a local ring, and
yeah.
20-foot rings are pretty rare. They're pretty hard to come by.
Oh yeah. Because you have to realize the wood is cost more. Everything costs more because you're putting most independent rings are 16 by 16 from my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you've been around some indie shows. Most of them like 16 by 16s that you've seen.
Well, there's a lot of those high spot 18-foot rings. They're very, very
Oh,
common.
okay.
And fans can always tell if it's a high spots ring, if it's 18 foot, if it's a high spots ring, because it has a square. They have square ring posts,
Yeah.
which you never want. You
Yeah.
don't want square ring posts. You don't want anything that has an edge, even if
Mm-hmm.
it's a rounded, beveled edge, kind of like the high spots rings are. They're not. It's not a sharp 90-degree angle, but you don't want anything like that. You want round ring posts. So if you get thrown into it, you're not catching your eye on that corner or something. You want flat, you want smooth, you don't want anything, you don't want
Right.
any edges poking out. But that's
I tell you.
so you see a lot of 18-foot rings, especially in the
Okay.
South,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot more wooden rings in Florida because that's how they were made back in the
Right.
day. What was the ring crew guy? Ray
Ray Blackburn.
Yes, Ray Blackburn. He had a
Yeah,
beautiful ring.
Ray. Yeah, he's still he did, and then he chopped it up a bunch of times to make a low boy and this and that and
What?
customize it. But yeah, at one point his was the golden standard for a good solid wrestling ring. IWF used Ray Blackburn for Eddie
Yes,
Mansfield at
right.
Universal Studios.
The ring that Eddie had set up at the school was apparently the same ring, at least what we were told. It was the same ring that was at 106 North Albany. Was the
Um,
TV ring.
no, I will say that. I know that it was the old Eddie Graham ring.
Oh, okay.
I do know that. Because the 106 North Albany ring at the Sportatorium, I remember the first time I worked in that building, and we grew up watching
Right.
Florida championship wrestling from Florida. The greatest thing ever, right?
Correct.
When I walked in there and I looked at it and I said, "This is it?
That's
Seriously?"
it.
The ring was built into a post coming holding up the ceiling.
Yep.
It went all the way up. And it was a low ceiling. They fit maybe 100 people in it. And I was like, this is such a historic building, had all the greatest stars ever in professional wrestling. And it was the basement, not the bottom floor of a couple story building in the middle of Tampa. I
Yeah.
was like, have you been to the Sportatorium before?
I was there once. I did the ring announcing for the Great Malenko tribute show.
Oh, okay.
So that was a great experience. That was in
Yeah.
1994.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But when you went in, were you kind of like thrown for a loop looking at that building for the first time?
Well, okay, so when I went in the lobby, and you walk in and you see the pictures, and okay, so this is
Hmm.
the path that the wrestler or that the fans went through. Then you turn to the left, and it was one of those brown doors, and now you're in the locker room. And I was instantly markified. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then you go through into another room, as you know, and then you come out. So the one entrance that I entered, that was where the baby faces came out of and went in. And then the other end that I exited, that was the heels entrance and exit.
Right.
Then I looked at the ring and I was like, okay, this is cool. And I was noticing the lights, and I noticed like some of the retro things that they had done to the building, because for a while it was a nightclub, and it was something else, and this and that. And then it was
church at one point too.
It's been everything. And I went over by the back door. You remember this angle, where Blackjack and who was it? Was it Kareem Mohammed? I think it was.
The Zambui Express, yes.
They did like a no DQ match on TV, and they went and fought outside.
Yeah.
And so I went out that side door just to kind of walk that path, and then I sat where Gordon Soley sat. They still had the L-shaped wall. Mm-hmm. They still had some of the fabric on the wall. And I was just imagining being there, being Gordon Soley. So I was in heaven.
Wow.
Whether, so you do see the warts and all, and you see the imperfections in the building, but it was just like, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I was in that building.
I had still magic, like when you were a kid.
I watched more Championship Wrestling from Florida, because it's an hour long. I probably watched more of that than any other TV show.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If you think about it, because it was an hour a week, and then you got 2 hours because you had Best Of, and you watched that. And, if I watched, what would it have been in the day? Let's say Happy Days, right? Laverne and Shirley, the Tuesday night lineup at ABC. Those are half an hour long. And you didn't get, it's not like now where you stream and you can watch a whole season. You had to wait till next week. So I probably watched more Florida wrestling than anything else.
Yeah, I was probably the same as many other people were. That's probably one of the shows that in our childhood we watched more than any other show ever. Yeah,
it's amazing.
Absolutely.
It's just truly amazing what that was. And you and I, we had the fortune of growing up and watching Championship Wrestling for Florida, and other kids who grew up in other parts of the country, they grew up watching their wrestling.
Yeah.
And it would have been so neat to like fly around or, go to different places and watch what their Saturday TV was like. It would have been like, oh, wow, this is so much different. Jumping back into the ring thing for a second, and the sound that a ring makes. Did you ever notice that Memphis's ring made like a really loud sound? And do you know why?
Did they mic it? Really?
No. It just if you go back and you watch clips on YouTube, and you'll hear the guys taking bumps more than see it. Mm-hmm. But all their steps, all of the, when they would lift their leg, throw a punch, and come down with their foot, all the stomps, everything. Do you think they laid like a sheet of aluminum, some sort of thing on the frame that made that extra sound?
I don't see them doing that, but maybe their padding was carpet, or they used to use carpet or the padding, which was like a foam padding. Right. And you can see they sink in a little bit more. It's really bad for your knees and stuff like that. But maybe that made the boards have more play or something, because it wasn't as tight holding it in place.
So the canvas and the padding laying on top of the boards holds the ring tighter and keeps everything sort of from moving or compressing, correct?
Shifting. Right, yeah.
So that's where I know that some of the, what they used to say at Southern wrestling, the Tennessee wrestling, that's where a lot of that trampoline stuff came from. I'll tell a story. I know that Kevin Dunn, who was the former executive producer of WWE television for 1,000 years, he hated a trampoline-y looking ring. He liked the big solid ring. And one of the many issues that Cornette had with Kevin Dunn was the fact
Hey,
that was the fact that the ring needed to be less stiff because as the style changed and it was no longer, the big man company, it wasn't Andre and Big John Studd and Bruno. It
right,
was a bump heavy style because wrestling
right.
had changed and the guys' bodies can't take it. And
Oh,
Kevin
we're
Dunn
getting
was
hurt
more Kevin Dunn was more interested in what it looked and sounded like on TV and Cornette was concerned about the health and condition of the athletes. Go figure.
because Kevin Dunn had never taken a bump before.
No. Had a
So
disdain for what you all did. Had a disdain for the wrestlers, for those who would
I
don,
made him
as they used to
rich.
say about as they used to say about catchers, don the tools of ignorance. Put the
Yeah.
pads on and go catch. But right,
It,
made him a shit ton of full of money, and
yeah,
all off the backs of you guys.
yeah. I do remember in WCW, the ropes used to be able to hit them really hard and sit into them, and then
Right.
all of a sudden, it was like hitting a freaking brick wall because the giant, um, Paul White,
Ah.
they changed all the cables, the thickness of the cables, because he was so big and all the big guys and everything. So it made it like you would hit it and it was like hitting three pieces of steel. It was so hard to move them. And
Oh.
they would even keep an extra couple set of ropes because they were worried about them breaking because he was so big and everything.
Now, how did you find rope versus steel cable rope before Paul White days? Was it an adjustment for you going and hitting rope?
Oh yes, yeah. When you hit the WWF ropes, you go back. It seems like you go back about 4 or 5 feet. The harder you hit it, the there's this young kid has just started wrestling. He's up in Michigan going to wrestling school. So he's sending me videos asking what I think and this and that. So of course I'm gonna. He's a friend of mine, and I'm gonna help him and tell him. So he's showing me how to hit the ropes. He is hitting the ropes like running, turning, hook, and 1 foot up and going. So I said, listen. I said, you want to use the ropes to your advantage. So you want to hit those things as hard as you can, for it propels you back off almost to the middle of the ring. Because in it 16 by 16, 18 by 18, you want to take 3 steps turn when you hit the ropes. That's just a, industry standard, kind of unwritten rule. Because you'll see the guys who run, and I'm sure you watched a million tapes of guys who wanted to come up, and when they run from corner to corner or rope to rope, and they're doing like the little small steps, and they take
Right.
6 or 7 steps. I would automatically take that tape and just throw it away. No, they don't know how to work. That's just
Um,
my own.
Legendary ECWA promoter Jim Kettner
Hmm.
showed me how to study footwork, and it was
Yeah,
always something that I felt. I something about this guy doesn't look right, and he's like, watch his feet.
yeah, yep,
And I would watch his
absolutely.
feet, count his steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh,
Ooh,
yeah, Kevin. His footwork is terrible. He said if
you know
he
who has
can,
bad footwork? I'm
who
probably going to get a lot of heat for this. Chris Jericho.
has terrible footwork, yes.
Yeah, he takes the little steps. You're supposed to take long strides and you turn and you sit into the rope because wrestling is an illusion. You make yourself look bigger by sitting, laying into that rope, and you hook that rope because if you don't hook the rope, you're going to go right through and bust your head open, which is funny as hell to watch when people do. So
Right,
you hook it, and I was always taught by Blackjack Mulligan that this hand is called your safety valve. So it's down to your side, just down by your side, by your hip, in case that rope breaks. That safety valve can grab that second rope and pretty much save your life. And you sit into it. So I told the kid, I said, hey, you want to lay in, you want to sit into that rope and really hit it hard. So when it pushes you off, and I said, you don't want to have a foot up because if the rope breaks, now you have only 1 foot. Now you want to plant both feet into the ground, sit into it, hook that rope, have that safety valve there, but then let it propel you off. I said, that's how you do it, and it's all. makes you look bigger because you're sitting into it, almost hitting hard, coming in over the top of the people with the ropes and everything. You know, it's all about the illusion of looking bigger than what you are.
Right. And I know that wrestlers today are trained to hit the top rope flat back, shoulders, both shoulders across, hitting that rope. No hand, hook, no elbow over the top. Their arms are out straight. Some guys will touch the second rope with their offhand, but that they are straight flat back into that top rope. And if it breaks, they're going to fall right on their head.
Who is teaching this is what I want to know.
Every wrestling school, because there are no wrestlings, and I say no, and, you know, again, absolutes are never good, but very, very few people, Casey, teach wrestlers today how to hit the ropes properly. Because if you watch modern wrestling, you see how they were trained. And you can tell the guys who were trained the right way
Wow.
and the guys who were trained in the modern style of hitting the ropes. If you watch, you know, New Japan, they do the same thing. No, watch Ric Flair, folks. Ric Flair, when and watch any Ric Flair match, and usually before he would lock up, right? He would take his robe, he would hand it to the guy over the top rope, he would slap his biceps a little bit, and he might do a little sag into the rope, right? He's testing it. He wants to see if he puts his ass and his hip on that second rope, is it going to hold his weight?
Yeah.
So that was a little test of the ring, because every ring is different.
Of course.
It comes down to a fact of trust. They trust that the ring is going to support them. And it's, again, like you're taking your life into your own hands being in a wrestling ring because of what it is. And if a
What
rope
about common
breaks,
sense? Common sense. Your body gets sweaty. You're gonna hit that rope, and a lot of times it's like a hose covering, so you're gonna get slippery. Or there's oil on you. You're gonna slip through that rope. I've seen it a million times. You
sure,
know, I can't believe they're. So I think we should have a seminar how to hit the ropes properly.
my
And
God.
there's two ways. You can hit it flat back, or you can hit it to the side where you sink into it too. Like a good buddy of mine, Jerry Lynn, he hits it sideways,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I was with the foot up, and I'm always like, man, you're gonna kill yourself. I always had debates about it and everything. But I'll give you an example. Like you're talking about Ric Flair, you used to always test it and everything. I was over in um, Arequipa, Peru, on a
Okay.
tour, and it was maybe 45 minutes before the doors open. So I just went out to the ring, and I just wanted to hit the ropes just a couple times, walk the ring just to make sure there's nothing crazy going on or whatever. And the ring was actually higher than the normal 3 foot off the from the floor to the top of the floor of the ring, right?
Right.
So it was up about another foot and a half. It was pretty highly up there. So I hit it once, I hit it again, I heard crack, and I was like, "Oh shit!" So I'm holding on, and I knew I was going down, so I just tucked, and I'm gonna roll. I knew what to prepare for. I ended up about 3 rows back,
Oh my
and
God.
I looked, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" The ring pole snapped in half at the floor of the ring, and it was coming at my head. So I'm rolling out of the way and trying to, save from getting killed and everything. So um, they had to weld the post back together and put it all together, so the show started late, and they're like, okay, this whole entire tour there's no ring work, no rope work at all. So
Oh,
it was
oh,
nothing.
the same ring for the whole tour. You're in Peru. What are
Whole
you going
tour.
to do? You're
Yeah.
not going to call
Yeah.
high spots.
So the whole tour, so guys were, first of all, guys were freaking out because they're like, they don't, half the guys don't know how to chain wrestle. So I'm
Right.
sitting back kind of chuckling and everything. I remember Lita was on that tour,
Oh,
and
wow.
her talking to me about it. I'm like, just you'd be fine. Just chain wrestle. You can do all kinds of stuff. Just be innovative, and you'll be fine. And we made it through it. Everything was fine, but um, yeah, that was a long ways down, and that I remember hitting it. I've broken a lot of rings because on the independents and stuff, you go there, you're bored, same old stuff, this and that. So there was always like $100 bounty to whoever could break the ring first. So you would hit the corners, and you would hit those corners as hard as you could, trying to pop that turnbuckle and break it. And I could hit them really hard, and I hit the ropes hard. I'd go to shows where the ring started just sliding over. So I'd move the ring like 4 foot one way, a couple foot another way. And I have one show. We were in. Remember old from Florida, Central Florida, cousin Junior.
Of course.
Yeah, he with his little pig, and
Yeah.
he ran a show. I actually wrestled Dick Slater on that show. Kevin Sullivan was there and everything. And I'm doing something in the match, like a run in or something in another match, and I come off the top and I drop an elbow on the guy or something, and the flooring went down about 3 foot. I'm like,
Oh.
oh shit. I'm like, well, let's see if we can just break it completely. So I went back up to the top, came off again, and the whole flooring just collapsed. And so there's people during the match in under the ring trying to fix it. And you can see the feet. And so I go up to the top again. I do something else. All 4 poles come in. You see his feet doing. So we always just try to just tear up and break. So the ring guys all hated us. They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh God, you're here tonight," because we're gonna tear up his ring. They just knew it. So you better have a good ring.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
Ray Blackburn would always complain, "Don't be breaking my ring, Casey."
right. Oh, I love Ray Blackburn. What a nice man. I always liked him, and I
He
would
was a
help him.
crotchety old dude, but
I
I
know.
really liked him. I enjoyed
Yeah.
his crotchetiness, though.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, and in WCW, the ring crew was Klondike Bill and who?
Mm-hmm. It changed at times. Buddy Lee Parker,
Yep.
Sarge, he was one of them. It had Pistol Pez Watley was one of them. At one time, whoever was at the power plant set up and tore down the ring.
Got
But
it.
yeah, Gordon Nelson and Klondike Bill used to drive the WCW truck everywhere.
That the other name was Gordon Nelson, and in the
Yeah.
WWF, it was the referees. So it was Mark Yaton, it was Mike Chioda, Tony
Mm-hmm.
Chimmel was part of the ring crew. He was Jacket Boy for a number of years, and then eventually became the ring announcer.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of those guys started as teenagers. Luckily, they were post Mel Phillips, so they avoided any of that issue. But they
Mm-hmm.
were, they were all like from, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, et cetera, and they were running
Yes.
so often up in the Northeast. As young kids, they were able to kind of come and start to help out, and then Gorilla Monsoon would make sure that they would get paid or whatever, and eventually they grew up and became part of the crew and great referees.
Gorilla's son was a referee, right?
Joey Morella. And
Yeah.
the sad thing, of course, is that Joey was killed in a car accident in 1994.
Oh, wow.
And, when I started in the WWF, everybody was like, because I enjoyed working with Monsoon, as I've told the story here. We were related by marriage.
Right.
And they were like,
Shoot?
yeah. Oh, for shoot. Okay, so maybe I didn't tell it here.
No.
So
wow.
So when I was 8 years old, my parents went to a wedding on a Saturday night, and they came home, and my dad the next day, he showed me he'd gotten Gorilla Monsoon's autograph. And Gorilla Monsoon was at the wedding. And I was like, Gorilla Monsoon was at this wedding? He goes, yeah, we're actually related to him now. Really?
Get out.
My Uncle John, my great uncle, my grandmother's brother, married Monsoon's sister-in-law.
No way.
And yeah, so we were related by marriage. And the first time I met him in June of '96, in Green Bay, Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I went up to him after the meeting. I introduced myself to him, shook his hand, and I said, and oh, by the way, you and I are related by marriage. And he goes, really? How? I told him the story, and he's like, oh, yeah, I remember that wedding. That was a good time. And I was like, yeah, my Uncle John was a good guy. He he had been in World War II. He was a sergeant major.
Mhm.
He was like
Oh,
big, my whole family, big drinkers. He turned his life around. He got married. He got really involved in the Catholic
wow.
Church and, wound up living out the rest of his life on the straight and narrow. And a lot of it
Well,
was a result of Monsoon's
so
sister-in-law.
you're technically a second generation announcer.
I never had thought of that before, but you're right.
I would definitely go by that. Absolutely.
There you go. Part of that
Yes,
Monsoon family
my
tree.
co-host podcast partner is second generation
Damn right.
wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly.
Hello
There we
there,
go.
everybody. Thank you very much, Casey Thompson.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I never get nominated, my buddy Joel, by the way, who did ask a question, which I'm going to get to in a second. My buddy Joel Yentis from the UK, he's all the time like, "Oh, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame one day," and I'm like, "Which Hall of Fame? That's certainly not the WWE." He goes, "No, the Meltzer one, the Observer Hall of Fame. Get the blank out of here. That's never going to happen. I'm not even going to get nominated."
Weren't you announcer of the year a couple years in there?
Three
Three?
times and was announcer
Wow.
of the decade in the 2010s, and I guarantee you I'm never going to get nominated.
Wow.
But anyway,
that's impressive there.
it was it was a very shallow pool because Jim Ross wasn't he was kind of on the decline, and Michael Cole was heavily produced and wasn't allowed to say things that were normal because he had Vince in his ear, and I had freedom to just be me.
Yeah, I don't think he's that produced anymore.
No.
In jumping up on the announcer's booth, dancing, and I don't know.
Teach his own. He's having fun.
Yeah, at least they're letting him have fun, I guess, right?
They are letting him have fun, and my God, all the years of grief that he took from Vince in that spot. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of competition. There's certainly, because TNA wasn't. And speaking of TNA, they have a from John JID 9999 there. He says TNA's happening right now, but John first said this, and thank you very much there, John, for the kind words.
Thank you. Yes,
we do. We are enjoying doing this live and having fun and telling these stories and doing these types of things that really few other podcasts can do, because we can tell you our personal experiences of having been there and having lived it and seen it. And Casey, of course, was in ring, and I made the joke, posting on, about the enhance your Sunday nights by, right? But your job was very important. And the question that my friend Joel asked was, do they teach how to be an enhancement guy at the Performance Center? And the answer from what I know is no. Correct?
No, because I mean, I don't know 100%, but I would venture to say that they're trying to teach everyone to be a star.
Yeah.
But and that's why so many of them, the younger generations, they have a problem when they have to put someone over because they've never done it before.
Right.
They don't realize that you can lose and still be over. You know, which you have to learn how to do that. You're not just taught that. So I don't know. Maybe with all these new expansions, with them doing stuff with TNA and them owning AAA, maybe they might have more experience. We were talking about it last week on the show. Maybe they might get out there and learn a couple new styles and add some more stuff to it. That way they're not all looking the same cookie cutter mold of you watched one NXT wrestler, you've seen them all because they're all trained by the same guys, which are great trainers, but you haven't had diversity and everything. And so hopefully that will give them a little bit of that. And the people who start getting it will probably start standing out a lot more too, I bet.
Right. One of the things that I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to talk about it, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces with this podcast, with the one that I'm doing with Bob Evans, the Almost Lives that we're doing on Fridays. And it's all going to somehow tie into this new promotion that I'm starting up, and I'm going to have the details very soon. But one of the things that we're emphasizing is that there is good and there is bad. And that the shade of gray is, to me, the ultimate cop-out. And there are going to be times where the good guy wins. Most of the time, the good guy's going to win. But there's going to be times where the bad guy wins. And
Right.
the good guy's going to have to figure it out.
Yeah.
You can lose. You can get blown out. Imagine you're a Super Bowl championship team and you lose by 4 touchdowns. That doesn't mean your season's over and you're never going to win again. It just means you got to figure
Right.
it out for next week.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why guys don't embrace that. A lot of times it's, hey, so-and-so is putting me over, and I do appreciate that, so I'm going to give him a lot of the match. Well, no. This match is set up for you to get over. Your job is to get over, right?
Well, just like you were saying, they weren't taught it. You can lose. I would even do jobs on TV, and at the 3 count, I would do a half kick out or lift my arm, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So, unless I took a big devastating, power bomb or something like that, but anytime on Independence, or anywhere else, if I was getting pinned, I would always kick out at 3.5, you know. So it looks like you still some type of life in you. You're not just completely just laying down. You look like you have a little fight, and it goes a long ways. They don't know all those little tricks and things like that. They
There,
don't realize that if you're a heel, you can lose every night of the week and it doesn't hurt you. But
right.
babyface, you have to learn how to get yourself over in the match where they don't care if you won or lost. They just want to make sure you're okay. You know?
And Georgia was a prime example with Tommy Rich. And I remember Tommy Rich on the Ascendants. So it started where he was from in Tennessee, working on the Memphis side, working on the Nashville
Yeah.
side, even working over on the Eastern side. And was an enhancement guy, but would be the tag partner of Bill Dundee, let's say. And if they won, Dundee would get the win, and if they lost, Tommy Rich would be the one to get pinned. Eventually, he found his way down to Georgia, and the first things that they did with Tommy Rich is he gets beat, and he's getting beaten by, let's say, Abdullah the Butcher. And Abdullah the Butcher drops the big elbow, boom, 1, 2, 3. And whoever the manager, Rock Hunter or whoever it was, raises his hand, and Tommy is like turning over and trying to grab Abby's boot. Like he's not
Yeah.
completely dead. And then Abdullah picks him up and does something devastating to him, puts him down for good. Then the next week, Abdullah the Butcher versus Tommy Rich. And it's 1, 2, 3, and he's kind of kicking out at 3. And now he's trying, and he's grabbing like at Abby's knee. It was that slow progression that got him to where the people believed in Tommy Rich, and that when he won the world title, it was an affirmation of all his hard work that he had done. It wasn't just like all of a sudden, oh, well, he must have done a favor for, who was the promoter? I can't remember his
Bill
name.
Barnett.
Jim Barnett. Jim Barnett. Oh, Jim
Yeah,
Barnett.
that's what I meant, Jim.
He
Yeah.
must have done a favor for Jim Barnett. No, he didn't. Those people believed in Tommy
boy.
Rich. My boy.
Oh,
But that was what people didn't see. It was the week by week by week growth and improvement, and toughness and heart and fight and determination.
a lot of sympathy.
Cody's loss at WrestleMania, Casey, he looked like a bag of shit. There was nothing. What the hell, man? I'm the biggest Cody supporter that there is, but
Right.
I got nothing. I'm like, did he just mentally tap out and say, this is nonsense? They're looking to put the boots to me. So you know what? I'm just going to go in there and do a job, put my leg up, and that'll be it.
Well, he probably didn't like the finish, and it reflects. Who was it that? Who was it that? We were talking about. You could tell by his entrance if he was going to win or if he was going to lose.
Oh my gosh. Well, Jake Roberts, I know, was infamous for that. There was another time where Rikishi, before he was Rikishi, he was the Sultan. And he wore that stupid mask that covered his face. And he got in the ring and he's looking at his invisible watch on his wrist. I was like, oh no.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no. But yeah, you could guys would give it away. I don't know what happened there. And I brought up the TNA thing with them being on pay-per-view right now because of Joe Hendry.
Mm-hmm.
Your world champion, Casey Thompson, goes to WrestleMania as a surprise. People love him. You know, you never know where Joe Hendry's going to pop up. Mention his name and he appears. And he's the surprise opponent for Randy Orton. And he takes not one, but 2 RKOs. He's your world champion, Casey Thompson. Now, if he's wrestling for you, how do you feel about that? Are you happy he gets the
Well,
experience in the audience? Or are
well,
you...
you just, yeah, I see what you're saying, and um, everyone knows that WWE is the epitome. They're the top number one. They're the, you know, granddaddy of all. So, does TNA want to try to be number 2 above AEW? So they take their champion going against how many times Randy Orton's had the titles? Countless
Yeah,
times.
like 12, I think.
And he loses after 2 RKOs?
No, he got beat after one, and then the second one
It took
was
another one, right?
then
I
took
don't think
another
it
one.
hurts them. I don't think it hurts them at all, personally. I wouldn't mind if it, because you guys on Wrestle, everyone they weren't talking to that about he lost. They're talking to all the TNA people. As we know, TNA, AEW, they have their own group of so many 100,000 people that are pro everything they do. They can't do anything wrong. If you say anything negative about it, they just want to kill you, or they just don't. They're relentless keyboard warriors.
Right.
Okay, they the big talk is that he was on WrestleMania in a
Yes.
featured match. I think that's the thing. The takeaway from it all is,
And I definitely see that. And I certainly never would begrudge Joe Hendry from
Yeah,
getting the WrestleMania payoff because he made a
yeah,
few extra bucks.
sure.
And was it I don't know. So tonight,
Well, it
Joe
really suck
Hendry,
if he didn't get any. It would really suck if he didn't get any extra pay. He's just got his TNA
right?
pay, wouldn't
It's in your downside. Yeah, he gets his
it?
$750 a week. But tonight he's in a triple threat match, and I know that Frankie Kazarian is one of the guys in the match, and I love Frankie. He's
Yeah.
incredible. I don't know, man. There better be something. There better be something fancy in that to save face of everybody else who, because listen, Joe Hendry's walking out of there. I got a feeling Joe Hendry's walking out with the belt. They're going to try to capitalize on this as much as possible. And it wouldn't shock
Right.
me if they had, because again, the rumors keep swirling that, the WWE is going to send somebody at Joe Hendry. So will it be, The Miz? Will it be Ethan Page? Will it be this one or that one? Who knows? So fans, I'm sure, will be looking up the aisle the whole time, waiting for the run-in. But it just, I don't know. It's like the old school guy in me says, "Oh, it's terrible. It's going to kill the belt." And then the common sense approach, like you say, and where the
Yeah.
wrestling is today, you make a lot of sense. You're absolutely right. But boy, there wasn't a shoulder up at 3.1. It was nothing. And then he got up and he
Yeah.
got patted on the back like he did a hell of a good job, kid. Oh, look out. Wham. RKO number 2. And it was a funny spot. But I don't know if that's what you want your world champion to be doing. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, I
It was the same
digress.
old theory when, I worked independents and they were getting mad. They were doing jobs on TV.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to do anything with you here? Yeah, this is a spot show. It's not going to matter,
Right.
you know?
Speaking, we were talking earlier on about Footwork, and I did want so Jim Kettner, the ECWA
Mhm.
promoter, the owner of the company, had it since 1967. He had it for it's over 50 years running, and he's an absolute legend. Pioneer of the
Yeah.
Super 8, all kinds of different things. He not only told me about footwork, but he said, watch guys that have good footwork. I'll give you a couple of names. They had excellent footwork. Christian, for one. So you mentioned Chris Jericho not having good footwork. That he was one that said, he was a guy that Kettner said, yeah, his footwork isn't any good, but watch Christian.
Yeah.
Christian, his footwork is perfect. He's never in the wrong position. He's always where he needs to
Right.
be. There's no wasted steps or motions. And the other one that had really good footwork as well was just incredible. Did you work with Aldo Montoya, or was that, did you do any favors for him?
No,
No.
I didn't. Although we probably could book him for $50 now, though, right?
Well, will he show up? I mean, that's the whole dilemma.
I was watching some stuff the other day about that whole. Yeah, it's sad when you see guys that, you know, I think it's the misconception that people think that all because they're on TV, they're just going to be automatically rich.
Yeah.
They don't realize that half their money, well, they pay taxes on 100% of it, and then half of it usually goes to their trans and hotels and stuff like that. So it's but yeah, it's always sad when you see because a lot of people can't leave the business and get a real job.
Right.
Go. They can't acclimate back into society. So it's sad when you see that. But no, I never did wrestle him.
I notice your tattoos on your arms, and I think we should again. Those are pretty cool, and those are the names of your kids
Yes.
and their birth dates.
Yes.
I
Both
remember.
the 13th.
I remember both of them. It's like
Yeah.
it was yesterday. My goodness.
And her name is Isabel, but that's just way too much to tattoo. I always call her Izzy.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
I just went with that.
And of course, as the clock ticks along, and we're going to wrap things up here in a few minutes. So, all right, Casey, you've got your comeback match, right? Casey's comeback. And you could pick any ring.
Ooh.
What do you want? Do you want an 18-foot WCW style cable ring? Do you want a 20 by 20 rope WWF style ring? Do you want a Ray Blackburn wooden ring special? Where are you going if you could hand pick a ring for your comeback match?
I want the Ray Blackburn Championship Wrestling from Florida, Gordon Nelson, that ring you've seen on Battle of the Belts, you've seen everywhere. It's the same exact ring that Ray had all those years and everything, same cage and everything. So it made it really cool every time you got into that ring because it seemed like you was one up on everything else than on a regular um, independent show or something like that. Yeah, I just something about that ring. I always loved working in it. It never broke on us. It just, the sound of that bump is just the sweetest sound there is. WCW had the same type of ring. Um, Before the Big Show, made him. I mean, before he, big ass, got up there and had put the big thick ropes that about killed you when you tried to hit him.
Right.
But I'm a fan of the WCW ring. Um, I don't understand how people say that WWF was stiffer. My opinion, WCW was a softer, better bumping ring. Um, it was stiff, but I liked it better. It was harder, but I still, even though it was harder, I liked it better. WWF was a steel bouncy ring. Um, Now WWF is like, you know, like like a pillow. They really, because of safety and stuff like that, they make those guys take bumps in foam pits and wearing helmets and stuff like that. It has to be the biggest joke in the world when, one of those old timers going there to watch them at the performance center and they're wearing a helmet on their head. Reminds me of Nick Patrick wearing that with the ref cam on top of his head.
That was awesome.
So
Yeah, and again, where do you draw the line? I know, like with the NFL, there are days that you practice in full pads. There are days where you're just in shells. You've got your shoulder pads and your helmet on, and it's mild contact. You're hitting, but not trying to tackle. It's more for the technique. There's ways I think you can find a happy medium, and you can walk through things half speed while teaching. but you
Right.
still get the experience. You always have to tuck your chin, because if you're wearing a helmet, you don't have to worry about tucking your chin and whacking your head, which is the first rule, right?
Productive.
You've got to tuck your
Yeah.
chin so you don't hit the back of your head and get a concussion.
Yeah. And feet up before you take your tailbone off the ground.
That's right, except for your partner. Your partner never had to do that.
No, he left one foot in the ground like concrete. Oh, jeez. I
That's
have
so
nightmares still
amazing.
to this day watching him.
Oh my
He's like,
gosh.
just
All right.
tag me, get out.
um,
Sorry, Cliff.
yeah,
Your
God
bumps for the shits.
God bless you.
You
But the
still owe me
idea
$50, by the way.
when the time is right, and we're all at the pearly gates, you can finally collect. You know, that'll be a day.
Good luck.
Good luck. He still wouldn't have it. Oh my God. All right. So I think we've answered some of this question, and I have a feeling that there would be differences of opinion as to whether or
Sure.
not they preferred the WCW bump as opposed to the WWF bump from back in the day. But again, you can go around and you can probably watch other interviews that have been done. I know Sean Waltman has talked extensively about it, and some guys that took like Randy Savage, for example, the elbow drop from the top rope. My God, how in the world did his hip stay in one piece for all those years, just landing on his hip repeatedly, hundreds and hundreds of times in that big ass
Imagine
hard ring?
Bobby Eaton, the leg drop
Yeah.
on that hard wood ring.
Yep.
Ooh.
And Bobby, of course, and Cornette has talked a lot about Bobby just being a freak of nature and being able to absorb that type of thing. He would, again, you'd see the leg drop, the Alabama Jam, and he's dropping it nice on the guy, folks. He's not coming flat down on his tailbone with his right
as a
and left
feather.
legs coming. No, he's on his hip, and his leg that's touching you is barely grazing you.
Yep.
And he's almost bouncing up on his feet. He was a physical marvel. And
the
I know
nicest
that
guy in the world.
absolutely. Oh my gosh, the sweetest guy.
Yeah.
But we'll be doing a lot more talking about what's going on with my upcoming promotion and how a little bit of this and a little bit of that is tying in. By the way, who made the logo for the In-Ring Wrestling podcast?
I made the logo, but that one is a neon sign place that I found
Well,
online.
the design of the ring, you did it?
Yeah. Yeah, I did an AI thing.
Yeah.
And kind of just screenshot it, took it, and didn't pay for it.
Oh,
You
there
know
you
how it
go.
is.
I like it.
Allegedly. Yeah.
I'm waiting for my logo. I keep waiting.
It's supposed to be there. I
I
wonder
keep
what
being
happened.
told
I'll have to
it's
check the mail.
I gotta get it. I've got my In-Ring Wrestling podcast glass thing. I'm gonna fix this whole setup here very soon. I'm very excited about that. We'll be renovating the broadcast studio.
Yeah, I think you do have enough room to put it right above you.
Yeah,
We'll
like
look into get one of those.
like here. Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
definitely could do that. Okay, so then next week we've got special guest.
Yes.
And then we'll continue on with that. And who knows, it might be two parts. Now, you're also going and doing something cool next Saturday. Do you want to talk about that, or is that
Sure.
on the down low?
No, it's the the Legend Luncheon. They meet every about 6 weeks or so, and the honorees for this time is Brian Blair is the host, and all the boys from every air, they come and all hang out. It's all pretty much all industry people. There's no fans allowed or anything, so it's just all the boys and the girls and stuff like that. And um, this um, this time is the honorees are Dirty Dick Slater.
Okay.
And Steve Kern is going to present that. And the other one, let's see how good your championship wrestling from Florida is. Speaking of his old tag team partner earlier, remember Larry Hamilton?
I do. Now, wait a
Yeah,
minute.
from
Which Larry
Jacksonville.
Hamilton? Okay, the Jacksonville Larry Hamilton. Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
Now, a little bit of tidbit here from when I was setting up the rings with Gordon Nelson with Championship Wrestling, Fort Myers, and stuff like that. Larry Hamilton gave me his phone number. I used to call and talk to him in Jacksonville, add him to my list of, Danny Miller, Gordon Soley, guys like that. So it's going to be, and I've never ran into him all those years of wrestling. I never ran into him. So it's
Did
going to
you?
be,
So you never worked for his Urban Wrestling Federation or whatever it was called that he ran in
no,
Jacksonville?
no, never
You got to
have.
ask him about that because
Yeah.
it was heavily the talent roster was mostly African American guys, and
Yeah.
it was
I remember.
different, and
I
it
I
was
remember
like the
guys
talk
who
of the
used to
industry.
go up like Ram Man, Soul Man, LXG.
Yep,
Remember those old Miami guys?
sure.
Um, Death Row. You remember him? Rosie.
Rosie, yes. Mike Rotunda's
And
greatest match.
I was there for that, and I used to
Oh,
always mess with Rosie. I'm like, I'm gonna tell Mike about that, and he'd be like, oh man, you better stop that. Rosie, he was fun. He was a cool guy.
that's awesome.
But
Yeah, so Larry Hamilton and Dick Slater are going to be
yeah,
honored, the
yeah.
honorees.
So yeah, it's going to be, it should be a lot of fun. We'll see a lot of the usual people. Bugsy McGraw will be there. Usually, Jerry Briscoe, Brian Blair, Steve Kern will be there this time. The
David
Cuban
Sierra.
Assassin,
Yep.
David Sierra will be there. Usually Ricky Santana. Then some referees will be there. Um, Silverman.
Okay.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of the old, some of the old Florida guys, so it's always fun. It's they also really promote the which we are members of, the Cauliflower Alley Club.
Yes.
So it's should be a fun time. So I should have some stories hopefully next week, or maybe we'll keep them for the following week. We don't want to take away from our special guest.
Yeah, and so we'll do a look back at Casey's luncheon and getting to see the stars. Please tell everybody that you run into that I said hello and wish them well and love all of them. They were all instrumental in helping me to get where I got to in my career and
Right.
in my life, and I can't thank them all enough. I got to go down to one of those. I need to.
Oh
Um,
yeah, definitely.
just because it's a cool experience and I've got so many thank
Yeah.
yous to say. Okay, so that's going to do it for this edition of the In Ring Wrestling Podcast. Make sure you're keeping up with all of the shorts. When you see it on YouTube, make sure you like it. By clicking the like button, it helps the algorithms. It's really crazy, but
Yeah.
the more you like it, and you're already watching it because you're a fan, it helps get on other people's feeds, believe it or not. So you, by just simply liking what you're already watching, will help spread the word and grow the audience organically. And we can't thank you enough for all the participation. So, Casey, thank you. Thank you for answering the burning questions about which ring is stiffer. And we'll have a special guest next week. We'll take a look at Casey's luncheon experience in a couple of weeks. And we'll always do it right here for you on the In Ring Wrestling Podcast. So, for Casey Thompson, I'm Kevin Kelly, and we'll see you next week. All right, my